What's going on, everyone? I'm Brian Michael, and today I'm going to teach you a dough recipe that keeps me employed. So pay attention and get ready for our Bread for Beginners by Dummies course. Now, bread isn't anything new, right? Bread or dough, however you want to look at it. We have proof of bread in ancient civilizations going back as far as the Neolithic period. That's 12,000 years ago. Now, if you take a look at it, there are several different types of breads, flatbreads, and the like. We're not going to get into the specifics today. That's really not what we're here for. But what we are here for today is we want to show you that making bread at home is not as complicated as a lot of people pitch it to you to be. So let's get after it. Now, the dough we're going to teach you guys how to make today is going to be widely recognized by our friends and our coworkers as our focaccia dough. It is incredible as focaccia bread, but it also pulls double duty as some of the best sheet tray pizzas you can make at home, calzones, grilled flatbreads, cheesy garlic bread, you name it. The list goes on and on and on. So our recipe calls for flour, sugar, warm water, yeast, as well as kosher salt. Now, the equipment we're going to be using will be a digital scale and a stand mixer. The reason being, in baking, the more uniform you keep your measurements, the more consistent whatever you're making is going to come out. And then the stand mixer's there because I like y'all, but not enough to mix dough by hand, especially not on my day off. It's not happening, I'm sorry. Anyways, in the bowl of a stand mixer, we're going to add 800 grams of warm water, measuring ideally above 90 degrees, but also below 110 degrees. The reason that range is important is because if it's too cold, nothing's really gonna happen. The yeast will probably remain dormant, you're not gonna see any activity, and then you're not gonna get a lot of gas release, which is going to impact the dough down the road. And if you go any higher, you're just gonna kill the yeast. It's dead. Once it's dead, there's nothing we can do. There's no amount of skill or talent or anything you want to throw in there that's going to bring the yeast back to life. It's dead. It's gone. Speaking of yeast, we're going to add it to this warm water, our 15 grams of yeast, as well as 50 grams of sugar. And we're going to stir them together and get them mingling for a few minutes. But while that's happening, let's talk about that. You should start noticing air bubbles and yeast clumps coming to the surface of the water. If you don't see these things, show's over. It's dead. The yeast right now is coming back to life and releasing gas, and this is very good. This is going to be the same process that happens during the proofing or fermenting of the dough, which is going to allow it to have all those nice air pockets and be light and fluffy down the road. So we tried like hell here to get you a closer look of the gas bubbles releasing and then the yeast coming back to life. You can see a little bit here and there and there, and that's good. If you don't see that, this is where you have to cut your losses. You have to take what you have currently, pour it down the drain and start over. This is a good point to know you've made this mistake because you're not wasting much from here. But if you try to carry on from here and you try to wait the sometimes hour and a half, 2 hours to let the dough rise, and it doesn't rise, well, I mean, now you've wasted more than just a couple of dollars in ingredients. Now you've wasted your time. And as a result, you've wasted my time. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Once you're happy with your yeast situation, we're gonna go in with 1,000 grams of all-purpose flour. Then it's time to strap this bad boy on into the mixer, and then we're going to go in with our dough hook. That's a dough hook. Don't use your paddle attachment. Don't use your, I don't even know what else comes in this thing, the whisk. Don't do that. We're making dough. We're using the dough hook. I don't know what else to say on this. I feel like that one's pretty easy. Now, always start your mixer on the slowest possible setting, unless you're really into cleaning up every square inch of your apartment, or you're pulling a really awful early 2000s prank and you're antiquing yourself. Don't do that. So once the flour is mixed in, add the salt, and we're gonna start ramping the speed up little by little until we're on high. And now we're gonna let it run on high, probably 10 or 15 minutes, until the dough starts slapping around the bowl and that noise starts getting you in your feelings, right? And then once you're in your feelings, you're gonna think about calling her. Don't do that either. But that's how you're gonna know the dough is ready. So now we're gonna get our slapping and clapping dough out of the stand mixer. We're gonna lightly oil the bowl. Now you can get your hand in there, or you can use a rubber spatula to move the dough around to ensure everything gets properly lubricated. At which point we will cover tightly with plastic wrap and allow to rest for however long it takes for the dough to double in size. This could be 30 minutes, this could be 45 minutes. This could honestly take as long as 2 hours. It could, it might not. Every kitchen is different and every batch of dough is gonna be a little bit different. is what it is. You just kind of got to roll with the punches. That's why you should always set time aside to make sure that you're doing this. I'll call it in the adamant window, right? It just, again, it just is what it is. It's one of those things that freaks people out when they go through a recipe and they're like, oh, but I let it rest. I let it rest for 45 minutes and it didn't grow that much. Well, it's probably really cold in your house, okay? Right? Just give it time to warm up, right? Don't judge the dough by the size of it when it's entirely too cold. You gotta give it a chance. You gotta give it a chance. Jeez. But like we said, just let the dough relax somewhere warm so that it can double in size. And damn, boy, got big as hell. That's what we like to see. Now, let's get that out onto a tray. A half sheet tray to be exact. But first, it's time to oil it up a bit. Traditionally, you would use olive oil or any kind of oil more or less will do, but we're gonna be using garlic oil for ours. Don't feel obligated to be as bougie as T. It's just it's all he has. To stretch out the dough, you don't want to roll it out, right? Where there's going to be no rolling pin, there's going to not be there's no pile of flour. We're going to gently press it into the pan we're trying to form it to. You don't want to force it to stretch because you're just going to tear the gluten structure and it's not going to bake the way you want it to. All of that air took as long as it did to kind of build up from the release from the yeast. That was it. That was the hardest part. We've done that. Now, if we go out of our way to knock all of that air out of it, we're gonna go from a nice, light, pillowy, fluffy bread to like a dense briquette that nobody really wants to eat. So press lightly, and when it's time, we're gonna change techniques up here. What I mean is we're gonna lift the dough up very gently, kind of from underneath, just using our fingertips, and we're gonna allow gravity to do most of the work here. I'm gonna work my hands out little by little to kind of be a little bit wider than the tray it's gonna rest on, because as it relaxes and forms into the pan and even bakes, it's gonna shrink a little bit, and that's totally fine. That's best case scenario. Which means it's all right for it to be a little larger than the tray heading into the oven. And kind of just like I touched on a second ago, don't force the dough to stretch. If you are having a hard time getting it all the way from edge to edge, that's perfectly fine. That's actually normal. All you need to do is wrap it tightly, just with the cling film, and a little bit of the oil over the top. And then we're just gonna let it relax for another 10 or 15 minutes so the gluten can settle. I mean, it just went from being a big ball in a bowl to nice and flat on a sheet tray. It's a pretty traumatic experience for it. It's kind of gone through hell. That's fine, we'll give it its 10 or 15 minutes because it's about to get a lot worse for it. It's about to get a lot more traumatic. Whenever you're ready to wake your dough up from its little nap, we're just gonna pick up right where we left off and we're gonna start stretching it again. And once you're happy, right? Maybe, not broadly speaking with the bread, once you're happy with the bread, we're gonna jump into this next step, which isn't truly essential, but personally, I like the way that it kind of gives you huge variances in the air pockets and all the irregularities that kind of come with it. And in order to do that, we're just gonna take our fingertips and we're gonna poke, not all the way through. We're gonna do nice gentle pokes the entire length of the sheet tray. Now, if you're looking for an actual term for this technique, the technical term for it is dimpling. I didn't make it up. It is dimpling. We're adding dimples to the bread. So we now have our prepped, rested, stretched, relaxed, dimpled dough stretched out onto a sheet tray, and we've got some serious decisions to make. We got some questions that need answering, right? Now, do we take this badass sheet of focaccia bread and do we just top it with some of our favorites? Personally, I recommend doing some rosemary, some cherry tomatoes, and some sea salt. Personally, that's what I would do, personally. Now, do we just make a badass sheet of focaccia bread to serve with salads? Or do we then, instead of serving it with a salad, do we just cut it up and use it as the bread to make some pretty killer sandwiches? Or do we even turn it into the craziest cheesy bread you've ever had in your life? Or do we give into our so southern they barely consider us Italy roots and make a Nona-style sheet tray pizza? Yeah, that's what we're gonna do, bud. Now, if you would like to make focaccia dough, you're just gonna decorate it with whatever toppings you would like. And then you're gonna bake it for about 10 to 15 minutes at 450 degrees or however, and I mean this, however hot your oven will go. But let's just move past it. Let's say, You know what? They're talking about pizzas. I like pizza. Maybe I want to join in with them on pizza. How would I do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. You would do it like this. To get it started, we're gonna pre-bake the dough for 7 to 10 minutes before dressing this slab up with some red sauce, some mozzarella, and some pepperoni. Once assembled, we're gonna return this to our oven for another 10 to 15 minutes until that cheese gets melty and that pepperoni gets crispy. That's the guy. That's the guy. That's the guy. We're gonna allow this pizza now we're just gonna let it cool for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. It's hot, right? You could get it out of the tray right now, have yourself a piece of pizza. You will dog walk your mouth with how hot that pizza is gonna be. Don't do it. Have a little bit of self-control, okay? I could do it, and I look like this, all right? Just wait. Just fucking wait. Well, once we're finished cooling, we're gonna slice on into this thing, and you guys are not gonna believe. You don't realize how good it is until you're eating it. The pictures don't do it justice. I get it, we picked the toppings, but the toppings play so well with everything else here. If you're gonna take this dough and make it your own, I have done this for staff meals as barbecue chicken pizzas, buffalo chicken pizzas. I mean, bacon tomato feta pies, the best on the market. I don't care what anybody says. Those are the best toppings you can throw on a pizza. You should do it, and I hope you will. There's something about this dough that it transcends anything you're ever gonna be able to find at the grocery store. I mean it. I've gotten a lot of praise from people who didn't have a lot of nice things to say to anybody after eating this, not just this dough, but whether we did get to serve it to them as bread or as pizza or as whatever, everybody wants this recipe. Everybody's always asking for this recipe. It's the same scenario every time. I start talking, I start telling them what goes into it. The second I list a number off, a notebook comes out with a pencil, or somebody busts their phone out and they start taking notes. This is it. This is years upon years of trial and error, and we're giving it to you for free because we hope that you will take this recipe and use it for good, right? So no weenies and dirt pizzas, no chili cheese dog pizzas. And for my dad's sake, because he hates it, I think it's fire. But for my dad's sake, please guys, don't make a chicken parm pizza. We would hate if you made a chicken parm pizza and sent us the picture of it. That'd be awful. Don't do that. But you know, that's for Papa K. Thank you for tuning in, coming with us along this journey, laughing with us, smiling with us, going idle with us. It's been a long time since we uploaded anything on this channel, and it's not because we don't care. It's not because we're not interested. We just got really busy. All right, I signed on to work with Big T over at a country club that we won't say the name of. It's just so much has kind of gone into these last few months, but we're finally teamed up. We're back together more instead of working on opposite sides of the state, whichever one that is, you guys don't need to know. And we'd like to thank you for still, after all this time, coming back and checking in on us and seeing what nonsense we're getting into. So before I could sign off and before I could jump into any more of this pizza, we would have to ask you guys, like always, you know, drop us a like on the video if you really enjoyed what was going on. If you really like this, hit that follow button. Subscribe. Is it follow or subscribe? Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And if you really like us, like us, drop a comment down below. All right. Well, I don't know what it does or why it does it, but it helps with the algorithm. I don't even think we're in it yet. Is what it is. And then it would mean a lot to us if you were to just, you know, send the video out, hit the share button, put some of your homies onto what we're doing. Yeah, we hope to be seeing a lot more of you guys soon. And as always, be good, y'all. Peace.